Well, hello, everybody. I appreciate your time and energy today. My name is Jay Acunzo. I'm an author, a speaker, and the co founder of the mastermind for creative people called Creator Kitchen. And it's my job to help turn experts into storytellers. And so that's what we're going to try to do in the next 30 minutes, starting right now. The title of my talk is Don't Be the Best, Be Their Favorite. I want to go inside the development process of original shows and original content overall that audiences love and propose one small change we can all make to speak with greater impact without adding any resources, no matter the type or medium of our content. So, to do that, I want to ask you a very silly question, but I think this is actually a very telling one. What's the best Disney film of all time? So, I'm going to ask you to stay with me for a second because it's going to get a little weirder before it gets better. But what's the best Disney film of all time? You can put your answer in the chat if you think about it. Having asked this question to family and friends a lot, and they get, very strange with me. Why are you saying this? Just play it out. I get Moana, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, the expected answers. So whatever you're picturing, I really appreciate that participation, whether it's verbally and vocally or just in your head. But I regret to inform you that you are incorrect. There is one objective answer that is the correct answer to this question, and it's a Goofy movie. In fact, if you know, you know. The reason you know is because of Powerline, the pop star. He's like legitimately good music. I'm like still waiting for his album. Now, this is a silly question to be asking. What's the best Disney film of all time? And that's because we are not rational creatures. We are subjective first, then we rationalize our decisions later. But we spend so much time as marketers, as entrepreneurs, as creatives, trying to showcase to peers or to our audience that, look, we're the objective best at what we do, which wastes a lot of time and energy because people make subjective emotional choices. A really funny and telling thing happened when I asked you this question. You didn't answer it. What's the best? You didn't answer that. You answered it, what's my favorite? And I apologize up front here. It looks like my animation is not working. So we are going to riff and improvise in the spirit of being bold and being creative here. But what is my favorite is the way you heard what is my best. That is incredibly revealing because that is how people make choices for anything. Now, I know we're up against something pretty daunting. The biggest and the best names in entertainment, in education, and even in our industries are making content. And how do we fit into the finite list of things, whether you host a podcast, write a newsletter, public speak, do whatever you do? How do you fit on that finite list of things they will fit into their lives? Well, you don't have to be the biggest or the best. You have to do something that requires no extra resources. You need to be their favorite. Now, think of the things that you fit into your lives and declare, this is my favorite. That's your personal preferred pick for a specific purpose. It's also kind of like self-expressing when you say, this is my favorite show, or this is my favorite shirt. There's nothing objective or academic about it. My favorite shirt is not like the best shirt that exists or even that I own, but it's my favorite, it's irreplaceable, and that's where we want to be too, no matter what we build or sell. My favorite sports team is the New York Knicks. If you know anything about sports, you know that for like 25 years, it got better last year, but like typically they've been among the objective worst. So really think about that. Objectively, among the worst in the cohort was my pick. Does that sound like rational decision making to you? It doesn't to me, but it does sound like human decision making. And guess what your audience is made up of? When your audience makes choices, they play favorites. The question we really need to ask is, are you one of them? Don't be the best, be their favorite. Now, most of the content we create actively undermines this objective because most of the content we create is commodity content. Maybe you're familiar with this idea of the content hamster wheel. Maybe your like left eye just started to twitch a little bit. Yeah, when we're on that hamster wheel, nothing individually that we create works all that well. And everyone else we're competing with kind of creates something similar. I can get it anywhere, and I guess you're anywhere. But what if we could get off that hamster wheel? What if more of our work worked? We could stop competing on volume and start competing on impact. Well, the impact of your content is directly proportional to two things, its value and its originality. And you can actually visualize how you're doing using this tool called the Idea Impact Matrix. This is something my co-founder in the Creator Kitchen and I built, Melanie Diesel, wonderful author and speaker. We built this to help our members increase the value and the originality of their content to compete on impact. The least valuable content we can provide is informational. The most insightful or the most valuable is insightful. In other words, informational content updates people, but insightful content empowers them. It's like handing them a compass instead of a list of steps. You created a navigator. They can do so much with that. It's not limiting, it's incredibly valuable. That's what it's like to impart an insight to somebody else. So, to increase the value of your content, make it more insightful. Informational, what is AI? Insightful, why does AI matter to B2B marketers working for small businesses today? Informational, the news from the week that was. Insightful, what the news means for next week. Informational, the 6 fastest growing brands today. Insightful, why are they growing so quickly? Additionally, we can plot the originality of our work on a spectrum from general to personal. I think of it this way: AI is trained on internet content, but you are trained on the content of your life. And no one else has access to that. Your personal perspective is your biggest advantage. Are you using it? Personal is only from you. It could only come from you or your team. General, it's pretty much anybody in your space could say that or do that. So, general is a prescription for making a better podcast or writing a newsletter that grows. Personal is a dissection of your 5 favorite creators or brands and why they're doing content so well and creatively, arriving at your prescription for how to do it better. General, the 6 quotes from Anthony Bourdain about storytelling. Personal, I was dealing with the loss of a loved one, and to feel and to cope and to escape, I turned to Bourdain's show, and I realized as a creator myself, like what he was doing to me to make me feel a certain way, and that makes sense because here are the 6 quotes that I found online of Bourdain talking about storytelling. It's the same content, but one version feels more personal because it's pressed through your own personal perspective. That doesn't mean you have to be vulnerable. That means you do have to start with you and or your team because it could only come from you. Now, are we using that perspective? Mostly no. Mostly we're trapped in what I would call the commodity cage. And inside the commodity cage, there we sit on that hamster wheel. And we're trying so hard, but we're in there crammed together with like 8,000 other little hamsters, all on their own little wheels. And when we compete, it's insane. It sounds ridiculous. We're like, we're going to beat you so hard. I'm going to repurpose my content to 45 different things. I'm going to rank number 1. I'm going to go viral. Sir, you're on a hamster wheel. You're going to go nowhere. And worse, rather than try to escape the place that is causing our very problems, we try to get clever with it. We try to outmaneuver these hamsters, even though we're really going nowhere. So we're going to tweet at the best possible time. Yes, I said tweet. The best possible time, I saw some report that said 3 p.m. So great, we're going to tweet at 3 p.m. Except now that that's out there, guess what happens? That is no longer the best time to tweet. And then we're going to just start stacking a million different things that we have to care about. We have to care about every social network under the sun, like Facebook. So Facebook then buys Instagram. So we're going to be all over Instagram. And then remember Snapchat came along, and then we're going to be on Instagram and Snapchat at the same time. But then TikTok came along, and TikTok sort of took over for Snapchat. So now we're on Instagram and TikTok. But then email marketing is way more important than anything. But why are there experts saying email marketing is dead? That makes no sense to me. And I don't have time to make sense of that because I also have a podcast. And the podcast can't just be audio. It also has to be video. And now we're running a YouTube channel and creating a lot of video, which matters and it's important. But oh my God, wait a second. Twitter just became X. Do I have to care about that? Elon is doing all this crazy crap. And along come Threads. What's our Thread strategy? Holy cow. We haven't thought about LinkedIn. Let's jump all over LinkedIn. Then there's big data and voice marketing. It's all about Alexa and Amazon Alexa. And then there's ChatGPT and AI and NFTs and Web3s and OMG Alexa, please punch me in the face.
Okay.
I'm sick of it. I want to escape the commodity cage and I want to run free opposite that commodity content in a place I call the field of favorites. I want to create things that are more valuable and more original. Others love them and I love them too. They could only come from me. And when we're in the field of favorites, we're alone. There's not like a million other people there, maybe 12 others. And there's butterflies and there's rainbows and a unicorn trots by with a wagon full of refreshments in a golden cup. Is this content heaven? No, this is just what the job is always supposed to be. Get off the hamster wheel. And the best part is what happens when your audience discovers your work when you create from that place. They wander over off the internet and they look all disheveled and they come to you and they're like, it was terrible. There was all this advice on the internet and it was all the same. There was all these experts getting aggressive, steal my secrets. 99% of people do this wrong. I'll show you the way. Why are they so aggressive trying to help me? And then And then there were these podcasters who made video clips from the podcast and they had like beautiful animated captions, but the content itself said nothing at all. It was terrible. It's so sunny here. Is that a unicorn? Thank you. Thank you for creating what you create. Imagine if that was the reaction you got for doing your work, with like less unicorn. Okay, fine, with more unicorn. When you're trapped in the commodity cage, you're forced to compete on volume. But when you're in the field of favorites, you can compete on impact because more of your work works. Create as much or as little as you want. More of your work works. What if that were us? Well, I think to achieve that is to do nothing requiring extra resources. What you know is worthy, but what you say can change to communicate with greater impact. I want you to tell more small stories containing big meaning. That's it. A tiny change in how we communicate without changing our goals or our resources or the types of content we typically create. You have to teach. You have to do how-tos, do how-tos. But if you add small stories with big meaning, you at once provide greater insights that could only come from you. Let me show you how this works. Let me show you the story of Michelle Warner and our needs for leads. See, it only works if I added the S on the word needs. I try to make it look natural. It's hard to do this, So I'm going to design you a tiny company, says Michelle, built to last. And it's going to be based on the relationships that you need to power it. Forget about all the traffic and the followers. Think about relationships. And early on, Michelle was doing what you might deem as commodity content. She was creating things like this, how to be intentional with your business connections. I talk a lot about intentionally building relationships, she says in the first line, and connection and keeping it a consistent priority and blah, blah, blah. Anybody could say that. Michelle was trapped in the commodity cage. And when that's us, it's really tempting because we need more results to think the same thing. We got to reach more people. And this never made sense to me because we can all reach some people, whether it's 5,000 or 5. And if those few people who already like and trust us are signaling to us that our work isn't hitting, that our work isn't working, why do we go, I better put this in front of way more people? That makes no sense at all. We think we have a reach problem when typically we have a resonance problem. See, reach is how many see it. Resonance is how much they care. And if they don't care, they don't act. If they don't act, we don't see results. So from resonance comes results. That's the business we're in. Today, Michelle is not thinking, I got to reach more. She's thinking, oh, I got to see more results, so I better resonate deeper. What if we all thought this way too? Well, I think there are 3 things that we can remember to ensure we resonate deeper. And the first comes from Michelle's story. When our work matters more, we need to hustle for attention less. Michelle is resonating deeply with her audience, but it's not by creating lots and lots of commodity content. Instead, she sends things to her email list like this. Here's the very first line of an email I got last month. She says, pop quiz, and this is where the animation is screwing up, I apologize. Pop quiz, what's the first thing you should do when you're sitting on the couch late at night on a Saturday, and out of nowhere, a bat flies across your head? Answer, not what I did. What did she do? She Googled for results. Like, what do I do to get a bat out of my house? And all the advice was mixed. Sound familiar? She goes on to say the next morning, when she could think clearly, she realized she'd fallen victim to the very trap she helps her entrepreneur clients avoid in their work. She was seeking strategy, chasing immediate results, instead of prioritizing sequence. Sequence, she says, is the order you do things. So when you want to get more results, prioritize sequence over strategy. Sequence first, always. What a wonderful insight, coming from her personal perspective. And she says, it was my best performing email in months. But she didn't increase her resources or do anything crazy or stunt-like to get it. She started telling small stories with big meaning. The response was passionate. This woman here says thank you or some version of thank you 5 times in 6 sentences. She even uses the word resonant to describe Michelle's email. Michelle changed no resources, a 500-word post per usual, meant to be very practical and teach something prescriptive, per usual, meant to engage with her prospects, per usual. But she saw a lift of 600% in replies compared to the typical email that she sent this year, and a lift of 150% in qualified leads to grow her business. Leads, by the way, who became real relationships, because that's what Michelle preaches. And there's a very simple story structure she used that we can all borrow to do this. It's got 3 parts. This happened, which made me realize, and that's the thing about. This happened. Start with a personal memory or a moment, which made me realize some idea sparked by that moment. And then this is the missing piece and the powerful piece that we need. That's the thing about the topic you want from me, the insight you need to hear. Let me give you a very simple example. Imagine I wanted to teach you to stop being so afraid of trying new things. I see you researching, I see you searching for experts. Stop doing that. People don't really fear the task, they fear the unknown. That's what the science says. So now I'm like the Nike slogan up here. Just do it. It's a very commodified way to try and teach that idea. But what if I said this? This happened. Look, for years, I was afraid of making espresso in my kitchen, which is embarrassing. I'm Italian. I speak quickly. I speak with my hands, gel in my hair. My wife is not Italian, but I would ask her, babe, are you making one? Can you make one for me? And then I realized after trying it one time, oh, wait, I was wasting a lot of time researching, asking her, seeking some solution out there, or not doing it. I realized after doing it once, and now I do it daily, wait, this isn't actually the thing I was afraid of, making espresso. I was just afraid of something that was new and unknown. Well, that's the thing about trying new things. If what we fear is the unknown, not the task, we ought to move faster to make the unknown known. Try the thing first. Then, even if you mess up and need some research, at least it's more focused and not wasteful. I am saying the same exact thing. What I know as an expert in this scenario is the same, but what I say has changed. And I hope you agree it feels more insightful and feels more personal. I hope it feels more high impact to you. So you can overlay this same framework onto Michelle's words. This happened. The bat arrived in her home. She did all this Googling. It was conflicting, which made me realize she even says the word. I was looking for the strategy when I needed sequence. That's the thing about searching for solutions, she implies. Think sequence over strategy. Sequence first, always. This is not about creating content. This is all about creating connection. That's the thing about whether you use it overtly, verbatim, or it's just a forcing function in your mind. It forces us to bridge the gap between what we're saying and what they want or need. Tell a story about anything and arrive at that moment to bring out the insight that they need to hear. So when our work matters more, we need to hustle for attention less. Ensure your stories matter using that's the thing about moments. Thing number 2, to resonate deeper, I want to tell you about Amy Carrero, or really the character she plays as an actress in a TV show on Disney Plus that my 4-year-old daughter loves, Elena of Avalor. I didn't know this princess, so I did some research on the site, and here's what they said. Header number 1, Elena's story is universal. Cool, my daughter's watching this. I love that. Let's see how my daughter can relate to this character. Elena is a young princess who was trapped for 41 years by an evil sorceress inside a magical amulet while her grandparents and sister were protected within a magical painting? All right, maybe this next part is universal. Now that she's free, Elena must now learn to rule as crown princess. Relatable? Universal? I mean, this is her house. This is her pet. I think my dog is cool and all, but come on. How is this universal? Now, of course, people in the arts and people in the media seem to understand something about storytelling that people in business have forgotten or failed to embrace, which is the thing that's universal isn't the action or topic of the story. It's the lesson. Elena's story is universal because what she's learning to do, and you can find interviews with the creator that say this, she's learning to be a good leader while also learning to be a good granddaughter and good friend. I'm learning to be a good leader at work and to be a good dad and son and husband. Move over. I got to watch this show with you, sweetie. Because a story is relatable because of its emotional stakes, not its topics or its action. All this emphasis on we teach marketers, so we can only tell stories about marketers. It makes no sense. Nowhere else do storytellers communicate that way, on this superficial, literal basis. That's not what people connect to. I don't care about soccer or football. I loved Ted Lasso because it's about kindness and how to remain true to your values as a kind person as you evolve and life gets hard. Stephen King with his passionate fans, Carrie, is not really a horror story. I mean, it is, but it's a story about human isolation. And we can all relate to that, especially lately. Or how about The Amazing Spider-Man? Can you whip through Manhattan with your spider powers? No? So what's this about? Where does it become universal and relatable? Well, with great power comes great responsibility. A story connects because it's an allegory. It's a journey to an insight. We're surrounded by allegories. From Latin allegoria, it means implying something else. That's the thing about. Lord of the Flies, the allegory of the cave from Plato, the modern version of that, the Matrix, whether it's literature as high-minded as Animal Farm or as childlike as Dr. Seuss, Michelle's Bat Story, or Elena of Avalor. These are allegories. That's the thing about powerful vehicles containing an insight that we want to convey so we become more memorable and resonate. Your stories are not about you. They're about the meaning that connects you and others. That's where people get confused in the business world. You don't need a case study. You might need an allegory because that's what makes it resonate. Thing number 3. To find worthy stories to tell, allegory or otherwise, I want you to think noteworthy, not newsworthy, because everything is inspiration in the hands of an effective storyteller. Noteworthy means you noted it. Maybe the media wouldn't cover it in a headline, but you were walking the dog and observed this thing. You were going to work or interacting with a colleague, and this came to mind. A memory from your childhood, a story that your mom loves to tell. Something happened to you which no media company would cover, and you turn that into powerful inspiration to communicate more powerfully. I think of this. At the New England Aquarium, after my daughter was done watching Elena, we'll go to the aquarium once in a while. I live in Boston, and there's always a guy standing where you see this kiosk right here. And the reason I put a kiosk is because all the guy is doing is responding to Q&A. He's just giving fact after fact after fact. I'm like, why do I need this person? He's not doing anything that uniquely requires him. And when you are not doing something that uniquely requires you, sooner or later, you might not be required. And I found myself wishing that this guy would stop acting like a kiosk, which, oh, by the way, there's now plentiful kiosks around the tank that you can interact with. I wanted him to stop acting like a bot and start acting more like Taylor Blake. Taylor is from Knuckle Bump Farms, and for a brief moment in the sun took the internet by storm because of the way she brought to life the different animals on her farm, including most notably Emmanuel the emu. And it started with a video much like this one. Let's play it.
This is a Emmanuel, do not do it. Emmanuel, don't do it. Emmanuel, don't do it. I'm trying to educate people right now, okay? Can you just stop? Can you?
Unbelievable. I got to know Emmanuel, that character. I got to know Taylor. I'm starting to care a little bit more than this is a cow with white fur. I don't even know what it's called. Than the fact that a kiosk could have spit out or an iPad. I'm starting to care. And it didn't stop there. Taylor extended this development of her character, both as a person and all the animals around her, because Emmanuel just wouldn't quit. Let's have a look at another video.
3 inches tall. Emmanuel, every time. Emmanuel, don't do it. Emmanuel, don't do it. Emmanuel, don't do it. Emmanuel, don't choose violence today. Please, every day we go through this. Gosh, it's never ending.
Emmanuel and Taylor even made an appearance on one of the grandest of stages because she resonated so deeply that the reach got easier and she reached all the way to here.
Emmanuel, no. Emmanuel, no. No. You're being a menace. Emmanuel, don't do it. Emmanuel, don't do it. She's not listening. Can I get someone here to help me? Oh my God, Taylor, Blake. It's Taylor. Taylor, Blake. So nice to see you. Thank
you. I could see a scenario where I could show an emu running, and in general, an adult emu can run at the top speed of this. Or I could bring that emu to life like Taylor does here.
Good night. Look at this dude. Let's go, Emmanuel. Emmanuel Todd Lopez. Yes!
Emmanuel Todd Lopez. The name of the turtle at the New England Aquarium is Myrtle. Myrtle the turtle. Why am I not getting to know Myrtle as if she looked like this? This is an actual picture of Myrtle. I added all this stuff, but look at the sass of that face. This wizened and graying turtle. Yeah, sure, give the fact this turtle is 70 years old. They can live to 90, but at 70, she's already pretty curmudgeonly. She doesn't have a big purse, but I imagine her swatting away fish because every time something gets close to her, she goes, "Mah, get off my lawn." Why can't you bring the facts to life in a way that could only come from you? Because more original means more you. Just look at the word original, origin. Do your ideas, style, perspective start with you or your team, or could pretty much anybody have created the way you created? See, the problem isn't that bots will replace humans. The problem is that too many humans are acting like bots. I want you to escape the commodity cage. When you're trapped there, it's about your checklist. Just rely on a bunch of steps, which, oh, by the way, technology is getting remarkably good at imitating. But when you want to create something more insightful and more personal and compete on impact, not volume, that's about your posture. It's about deciding for yourself to respond with a story. No one's going to ask you to do that. Your posture is how you see yourself and the world. And most of the time, we look for a checklist instead of trying to develop that vision. To create commodity content, trust your checklist, go ahead. But to create something original, trust yourself. I have one more story for you, but I want to invite you to come hang out with me next month on a free roundtable to talk about your actual work and get some more personalized advice. On that page, I also planted Powerline's music video from a Goofy movie and a couple of free resources for producing original content, ungated and for free. So I hope you check that out at jayacunzo.com/goofy. So we're going to tell small stories with big meaning. To spark action, we're going to learn to resonate deeper, not reach more, because that's where action comes from. This happened, a moment that's personal, which made me realize an idea sparked by that. And that's the thing about the topic I normally teach, the insight I'm here with today. Then to matter more to people, we're going to tell stories that matter to us, because stories connect on emotional stakes, not topics. Case studies might illustrate, but allegories illuminate. To find stories worth telling, think noteworthy, not newsworthy. Think of it this way. Both bots and people operate on LLMs. AI has large language models, but you have little life moments. Are you pulling from your little life moments? To do that, you have to trust yourself. And I know you want to, because we want our work to matter. We want to matter. And if you're going, heck yeah, well then boy, do I have some good news for you. And it starts where I think most good news starts, inside a pizza place. Specifically, Sally's A Pizza in New Haven, Connecticut. My favorite pizza place in the world is this little hole-in-the-wall joint on Worcester Street, there on the left. On the right, you see 2 blocks down the street, their biggest competitor, Pepe's. Both are ranked nationally every year. Both have amazing clientele. Famous people hang on their walls with their signed autographs. But my family's a Sally's family. And every time we went as a kid, I would get this guy as the waiter, Lorenzo. Big burly 6'4" guy, shorts even in the winter, and he would saunter around the restaurant being sarcastic to his regulars. And so being like a 12-year-old snarky boy, I was sarcastic right back. I said, "Hey Lorenzo, my friends like Pepe's better. I like Sally's though. How are you any different?" And very thoughtfully he said, "Well, we both have access to the same commodities, cheese, tomatoes, mushrooms, but the secret is the starter. The starter is a simple mixture of flour and water, and it forms the basis for making great dough. There are 2 ways to affect a starter: exposure and time. You can expose it to different shaped containers, different levels of temperature. Some people put little drops of like grape juice in theirs, and then it takes time to ferment. Now, if you're serious about baking, you'll have and work your starter for years and years. Sally's began working a starter in 1938. It's older than Myrtle. Some people give their starter a name. It's that valuable to them. It's like a pet that lives in their restaurant or their home. And I don't have a starter, but if I ever did get one, I already have my name picked out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But as a result of all the time it's taken to become what it is, all the things it's been exposed to, all the time it took to ferment, no 2 starters can make the same dough. And so that's how Sally's, 2 blocks away from its biggest competitor, both of which can access the same commodity stuff, that's how Sally's can be somehow different and I think more delicious. It's because it's about the starter. Well, that's the thing about doing creative work. You're spending so much time looking for answers from others when your biggest advantage is you. Because of all the things you've been exposed to in your life and all the time it's taken you to become who you are the biggest advantage that no one else has access to. You are the starter. So, just as important, I apologize for the animation, as all your expertise and what you know is how you bring what you know to life. Is it a fact or is it a story? Just as powerful as the ability to create content and check boxes is the posture you bring with yourself to trust yourself, to use your fears and hopes and regrets and daily moments and hobbies, your wins, your losses, who you connect with, who you work with. What you know matters, but who you are makes that clear to others because you are the starter, and no two starters can make the same dough. Starting right now, we all face a choice in this era of infinite noise and AI fueled everything. We can become trapped on that commodity, in that commodity cage, lashing ourselves to the hamster wheel, or we can tell small stories with big meaning to set ourselves and our work free, to run free in the field of favorites till people thank us for our work. Don't market more, matter more. Because when you learn to matter more, you can beg for attention less. Don't be the best, be their favorite. Thank you so much for your time, your attention, your debate on Disney films, but most of all, for the work that you do. Keep making things that matter.